Anyway folks, bottom line, don't like a game, move on. Don't put yourself through the torture. This article comes from Kellen Beck over at Mashable.com. It is called "There's No Shame in Not Finishing a Video Game." It's okay to leave a video game unfinished. Even if you like it, even if you really want to finish it, it's okay that you haven't. It doesn't make you a failure. Video games are meant to be entertainment. If the game doesn't suit your mood, drop it and try again another time. If a game is too difficult, give it a rest for a week, a month, even a year. If a game bores you, drop it forever. If you finish one, great. If you get halfway through, or even 90% of the way there and stop, also great. Chances are you paid for it, and it's your choice to do whatever you want with it. Too often we shame ourselves for the things we haven't done or have yet to do. Too often we put ourselves down for failing to meet some inane standard that we make up in our own minds. I used to get down on myself for all the games I left incomplete, piling up in the backlog like an ever-expanding mountain of shame. But video games don't deserve to make us feel like failures, and they certainly don't deserve that much negative space in our heads. Sonic the Hedgehog can tap his foot all he wants. Video games are often long, challenging endeavours that test players' skills, concentration, and problem-solving abilities. Perhaps above everything else, they test our commitment. The Witcher 3 is a fantastic game, one of the best of the last decade, and has sold over 40 million copies. It takes dozens of hours to finish the story, and it's more like hundreds if you really want to explore the world and complete every side quest. On Steam, at the time of writing, only 27% of people who own the game earned the achievement Past the Trial, which you get when you complete the main story on any difficulty. I am part of the 72%. I played The Witcher 3 for 9 hours back in 2015 when it launched. I just wasn't in the mood for such an undertaking at the time, so it fell to the wayside. I am a big fan of The Witcher 2, which I completed just a couple of years before its sequel came out. I was really looking forward to The Witcher 3's release and planned on sinking days of time into it, exploring the vast open world and hunting down all kinds of beasts. It just didn't happen. Years passed. When the coronavirus lockdown occurred, I thought The Witcher 3 would be a fun one to get lost in. I picked it up again on Xbox in April this year and played it for about 10 hours. Then it fell to the wayside again. Other games came up. I drifted towards perennial favourites like Rocket League and Counter-Strike, played games like Fall Guys and Among Us with friends, sunk time into new releases like Hades, and spent dozens of hours reviewing games like Paper Mario and Watch Dogs Legion. There's always something new that will sap my attention, make me drop another game into my backlog. Most recently I planned on playing through Yakuza Like a Dragon, and then going back and finishing Yakuza 0, a game I got roughly halfway through in 2019 but dropped. But there's a new World of Warcraft expansion out this November, so yeah. Unfinished games used to weigh on me a lot. They were like little neglected ghosts following me around, occasionally tugging at the back of my brain. I had a collection of them since childhood, beginning with Paper Mario for the N64, and Legend of Zelda, Wind Waker and GameCube. They were favourites, but I never completed them, and I thought about them all too frequently for more than a decade. But even though I never finished them, I still fondly look back at my memories of playing them. The same goes for a lot of games I love. Dark Souls, GTA 4, Hollow Knight, Mario and Rabbids, Battle Kingdom, the list goes on and on. You don't have to finish a game to love it. I've accepted that some of these games may never leave this list, and the list will inevitably grow longer. To stop the shame of not finishing games, we need to stop equating unfinished games with failure. Leaving something unfinished is normal. We do it all the time, with plenty of valid reasons. Other stuff comes up, we get bored of it, it stops clicking, we forget about it. That's just part of life. It happens outside of video games too. Maybe you haven't got food from a restaurant that you love in a while because you're cooking more or trying other spots. Do you beat yourself up about it? No. Maybe you watched the first couple of seasons of American Idol and then fell off the wagon. Does that bother you? I hope not. Just move on. Maybe someday you'll jump back into your unfinished games. Maybe you won't. Either decision is perfectly valid, but you can't let one choice negatively impact your sense of self. There are enough things to do to actually worry about in life. At the end of the day, they're just video games. If you really want to, you can just look up the endings on YouTube or something. I have to agree with Kellen here. Now, the reason this got on my mind recently is I've been thinking a lot about this since I bought myself into the Game Pass ecosystem. Up until the Xbox Series S, so prior to this, I was on PS4, then 360, then PS2, PS1, NES, Saturn. There you go, that's my entire gaming history right there. Sorry. I used to equate my purchases as value for money. If I've paid £40 or £50 for a game, I want my money's worth. I wouldn't want to pay that amount of money, play a game for an hour, and then never play it again. And that's how I would equate it up in my mind, rather than failure. I think a lot of people would equate with failure, as Kellen was saying there. But for me, it felt like I was wasting my money by buying this game and not at least reaching the end of it. Now, that was a bigger issue for games that I didn't necessarily enjoy. Sometimes there's games that I've enjoyed so much, but then I've not been able to reach the end, whether it's because of a difficulty spike, or simply running out of time, or running out of interest. A recent example was Red Dead Redemption 2. I've not completed Red Dead Redemption 2 because, to be honest, for me the game just dragged on too long. Part of that's my fault because I was trying to experience the whole game in one. I wasn't just focusing on the main story. I was doing side missions and what have you as I was progressing through the game, as they were coming up, as they were presenting themselves to me, basically. And I think I was at like hour 60 by that point. And you know, if you do something for too long, even if you love it, it just eventually does get mundane, and I just had to put it down. There was a narrative reason as well. I didn't quite like where the story was going. I'm not going to talk about spoilers here for those who haven't played it somehow, but it became very evident at the halfway point what was going to happen to the main character, and because you could just see that like a train wreck in slow motion, or a literal train coming towards you in slow motion, I just kind of lost interest in the journey, knowing in my mind where it was going to end up. I mean, who knows, maybe it was going to be a blaze of glory at the end, similar to another game in that series, but I said that as if there's more than two. But I've been thinking about it even more recently. Again, let's go back to the Game Pass example there. Because I used to equate finishing games as value for money, I've had a paradigm shift in my brain and when it comes to not completing games. I played the game on Game Pass not long after I came over, called Manhunter. Manhunter? Yeah, Manhunter. The one where you're playing as a shark. I thought that looked cool as hell. I couldn't wait to play it eventually. But when I was on PS4, I was like, I'm going to wait for that to go on sale. It doesn't look like a £50 game to me. I'll wait for it to go down to like 15 or 20. And sure enough, when I played the game on Game Pass, I was glad I made that decision, because it was one of those games that I got bored after about an hour or two. I felt like, right, I've seen everything there is to see here in this short thing of time. Now, I could keep going through the game. I know you'd probably unlock more powers and abilities for your shark as you went, but I didn't feel like the experience was going to get fundamentally different. So after about an hour or two, I thought, right, that's fine. Uninstall. Move on to the next game. And that little worry about value for money in my mind went by the wayside, because I'm paying my £15 a month for the Ultimate. So it doesn't matter how many times. And sure enough, there's been a lot of games that I've downloaded on Game Pass. Some I've downloaded and played for multiple hours. Obvious candidate, Dead by Daylight there. That's kind of cheating, because that's a carryover from PS4 days for me. But then there's other games like Yakuza, Like a Dragon. I heard great things about that. It seems like a good point to jump into the Yakuza series, because it's from what I'm told, what I understand, it's very removed from the mainline Yakuza series. And you know what? I was enjoying it for quite a while. Unfortunately, though, there was too many cutscenes for me. I literally had my controller down or just tapping the A button to get through dialogue more than I was actually interacting with the game. And I love me some Metal Gear. I love me some Persona. I'm not a stranger to narrative and cutscene heavy games, but Yakuza just felt like that little step over the line, that little extra straw in that camel's back. And after about 5 hours of gameplay, I thought, that's it for me, thank you. And again, if I had played it on PS4, I probably would have paid £30 or £40 for that open world game. That seems like a fair price to me. But I would have thought, oh, I've paid £30 or £40 for this. Right, I'll just get through it. And I'll just keep tapping that A button. And I'll get to the end. And I'm sure the storyline probably would have been great. But that's a large time investment. You know, I was 4 or 5 hours in, and from my understanding, I was barely a third of the way through. That's a lot of time, and, you know, when there's so many games coming out these days, and more of them are demanding more and more of your attention due to live service elements and things like that, you kind of have to prioritise a bit more. And if you find yourself being one of these people who does get downhearted when they don't complete a game, like Kellen was saying, there are plenty of other games out there, and it's alright to move on. like Kellen said, you can go watch the enders on YouTube. Here's an example. My lockdown project in 2020, when the pandemic first hit, I thought, right, I'm going to work my way through a game series. What am I going to pick? I went for Kingdom Hearts. I bought the Kingdom Hearts all-in-one package, and I binged all the games over a couple of weeks. A couple of months might be more fair. It was a fairly short time. I went through it pretty hard. Now, I really struggled with the final boss battles in Kingdom Hearts 1 and 2. I really did. I really hate it in JRPGs when, you know, you can breeze through the game, no problem, and then suddenly you get to a last boss and it's just like totally overpowered, and you've got this choice. You can either go back and grind for a couple of hours just to beat that last boss, or you can go to YouTube and watch the last 10 minutes. I took that road. I'm sorry. I technically never completed Kingdom Hearts 1 and 2. But I sure enjoyed the rest of them. I should say I did enjoy Kingdom Hearts 1 and 2 quite a bit. They're showing their age quite badly now. It was a substantial difference when it moved on to the other games in the series, I must say. Anyway, folks, bottom line, don't like a game, move on. Don't put yourself through the torture.